5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye, hello, wherever you are in the world. As I always say, one of those will apply to you. This is Leicester Till I Die, coming to you live from my second bedroom and coming live from somewhere in Leicester with Brad as well. And I've got to say before we start, a little bit late tonight, but a huge thank you to Brad. This was supposed to be with Tom because originally I was going to say ask Brad, but he had a cold. Everybody's had this cold over the Christmas and New Year, except me, he says, which probably means I'll get it now. Because I thought, you know what, Brad will probably agree with me on a lot of them. But he was ill, so I invited Tom, and Tom has had a bad dose of the gremlins. So you've got me and Brad, because Brad, and I've got to say thank you very much, Brad, for jumping in at the last minute. I know he's trying to get his computer going at the moment. I'm just trying to... I'll just wait until I can see that he's okay. Oh, he's there. He's sticking it up at me. Let me bring him in and say a very, very, very happy New Year to the one, the only, well, we all know him as Brad, but other people know him as, I can't think of what his name was. Let me bring him in. Brad, where are you, sir? You've got to be somewhere here. I found you. I've got you. You're there.
I'm here, I'm there, get used to it. I was something like Jizz Handballs as an elf and formerly known as Jesus before the long disappeared.
Whizzy Jizzy Hands.
That's it, Whizzy Jizzy, let's get busy. And that's a euphemism in its own right.
Oh, if only I'd remembered to get that ready. Hey, welcome along, sir, and thank you very much for standing in at the last minute.
You're very welcome, mate. It was all lastminute.com here as well. I was busy. I'm busy at the moment, just doing transfer stuff on phones to a new phone, and then I get a phone call off Chris. I didn't know which phone to answer it off because they both rang.
Oh, Mr. Two Phones.
I know,
hey,
Two Phones they call me.
You're not part of a big criminal gang using a burner phone, are you? Say no more. Say no more. Well, I've got to say, obviously the best Christmas present you got off Jess was your cough. But yes.
Bless her.
There we go. Wayne was in. Says he's with family, but I'll enjoy listening to this at work tomorrow. Cheers, Wayne. And he says, gloves off, I hope. Not sure about that. Ronald is in.
That's the show, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly. Ronald is in. Good evening, Ronald. And Present is in. Hello, sir. How are you? Look, before we start, because we are going to, but I do want to actually have a little mention, because I do feel that somebody that I'm very close to and you are very close to, because we never like to hear bad news on this show, do we?
No.
And I say, look, I think absolutely no sympathy whatsoever goes out to this French bastard.
No, exactly, not at all. I in fact, I hope when he left the A&E room, he tripped over a stairs and broke his elbow.
Yes, yes. He's out for a long time. Couldn't happen to a nicer person. Hopefully.
Do you know what makes it even richer, Chris? Sorry to jump in there.
No,
Do you
no.
remember the transfer? Do you
Yes.
remember the whole transfer? And not I'm not just talking about Wesley Fofana like waiting at an airport like bloody Mahrez or whatever or anything like that. No, I'm not just talking about that, Chris. I'm talking about the fact that Chelsea, in their infinite wisdom, right? And I don't know who decided either to listen to them or not listen to them, as the case may be, but they put the transfer on hold, didn't they? We were sat there going, well, fucking go, hurry up, you're right, get out. And then they paused because they were worried about his injury record and sent him all the way to America. Maybe America wasn't the best place for Chelsea to send them to get an expert opinion because it's really done them well.
Yes, it has.
Played less games than they spent years on their bench or recovery so far.
I think both of us would agree here that neither, we know these players don't have any loyalty to Leicester, as we don't to any company that we are working for at any particular time. But, you expect them to sort of at least show respect, and he had zero respect for this club when he left. I remember him sat in the stand with his girlfriend, with his girlfriend, watching a Leicester game on his phone, not even watching the game. And then when Maddison scored a goal, he didn't even applaud.
No, and the sad thing is, it was like one of their moments for us, wasn't it? Where, St. Etienne could have just come at us and been like, tried to warn you.
Yeah.
Because he did do the same with them, didn't they? And I suppose a bit like the whole Brendan Rodgers saga, although we could argue we got something out of Brendan Rodgers being our manager, an FA Cup and some European travels. But, St. Etienne, it was Claude Puel. He kind of wanted to stick it to us because he didn't want him to go to us in particular. If not, he didn't want him to go at all, I don't think. But he was definitely adamant he didn't want him to go to Leicester. Yeah. And we kind of got a big smug for our boots. And then Karma repaid the favour back, Yes.
Indeed. I love that picture of him there where he's actually saying, does my breath smell?
Yeah. Oh, no, I've dislocated my finger doing this.
Like I say, I don't normally wish most players bad luck, but I wish him everything that he gets. He thoroughly deserves it.
Yeah, if someone can infinitely step on Lego, I want it to be him every morning.
Exactly, yes. # karma.
Yes. Exactly.
But look, welcome to welcome to Chitty Bang Bang.
I was going to say, what are we doing here, Chris?
Oh, chitty bang bang. That was on telly the other morning. Of course it was. It was Christmas. The blame game, City Chat. Now, I thought we'd do this for a bit of fun because we've not got, it's still sort of technically Christmas time. We've not got, don't know when the 12th day is, to be honest with you. I think it's Sunday. But over the time, look, I mean, as I said in the description, and I said to you before, 4 or 5 years ago, we were the team that the fans of every other club wanted to be their club to be like. Or Leicester had the perfect ownership. They were doing this right. Look, they'd come from nowhere and they'd won the league and won the FA Cup, and wasn't it fantastic? And and in less than 4 years, not saying we've turned into the laughing stock. I'll reserve that space for Southampton, but we have literally gone from the good to the bad, and we had a bit of the ugly in between. And various people have got blamed, and you can see the 6 segments there. Top as the owner, the board, which is represented by Susan Whelan, recruitment, which is represented by Martin Glover, John Rudkin, of course, who does everything at the club, so he must be to blame.
Yeah, it's all him already. Short shot.
Yeah. The managers, represented there by Brendan Rodgers, and the players. So 6 to go there, and what we've each got 100 points, or 100%, if you like, and we are going to apply a certain percentage to each of those sections, and we'll see whether we agree or not. I think we could possibly agree on a couple, but shall we get the first suspect in?
Yes, let's call him to the stand.
There we go. Look at that. His prison picture taken. I'll call him Top because I'm not even going to attempt to say his proper name. He has to shoulder a certain amount of blame, doesn't he?
He does. He does. But I will say this now, and this you'll know instantly with what I'm saying, whether we're going to differ on how high or low our number's going to be here. He does shepherd the blame to a degree, but I think it has to come with a lot of leniency. And normally that doesn't happen with an owner, but we had the unfortunate tragedy all them years ago. You know, the helicopter and lives were lost as well as our beloved owner as well. You know, we have to remember there was more than just him that we lost on that fateful day. But he was throwing in. I mean, you can't even say deep end, Chris. They took him to the middle of the ocean and went, "Hey, I'll run this club," and you know, that came with a head wreck. You know, he just lost his father in the most one of the most horrendous ways you can lose a family member, let alone your own father. And I know his mother and his brother came up on board to help the club and run it, but he could have tucked his tails between his legs and said, "Look, I can't deal with this. Someone needs to run a club whose head's right." And fair play to him, he stuck to his guns. He wanted to do his dad proud, and I feel like he is to a degree doing that, despite the on and off field antics. But whilst he does shoulder some responsibility, it's maybe not as high as some people want to give. I think maybe I'm being nice and maybe I'm being too nice, but I think you've got to cut him a lot of slack because he was more than learning on the job, wasn't it? Hasn't he, Chris? And he still is. He still is learning on the job. I mean, if you want to give a plus side to that, Chris, who hired the lawyer to beat PSR?
Yes, yeah, he is. He is. But who got us in the PSR trouble in the first place?
Oh, he gets into trouble, gets out of it. You know?
Although obviously there's a new PSR coming in this new year now, but it'd be interesting to see. I mean, just taking you up on what you've said, I accept learning on the job. I accept, you know, his dad did pass away, as we know, when we loved him in horrible circumstances. But let's not forget the fact that his dad bought the club because he wanted to buy a club, as in Top wanted to buy a club.
Yeah.
And when he took over from his dad, yes, he could have walked away, but he decided he didn't want to, and he wanted to carry it, and all credit to him for that. But when he took over, the downfall wasn't straight away.
No.
You know, and when you look at everybody else that we're going to go through on this list, they are all in those positions at his will.
Very true. Very true. But they were also there and entrusted by his father as well, and maybe sharing where the shark of responsibility I'm gonna give out to, not to give anything away, but it was also a bit like, you know, Claudio Ranieri gets accused of riding off the coattails of the high of what Nigel Pearson created with The Great Escape. That team was riding off the high of that season where they won the league, and that momentum, we cannot lie, that momentum carried them players a long way through. Yes. I know we improved the squad and that title winning squad left, but that mantra, that mentality was still embedded in the club, and it was only going to hold for so long unless we started doing 115 other illegal activities, like a certain other couple in a slightly lighter blue than us are finding out isn't the way to win leagues. Who knew?
Apparently, that has now they've finished their investigation, and we should hear mid-March. But then, if City object, it could be back end of this year.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, I mean, I did a show when we got relegated. I did quite a bad show for Top, because I did blame him a lot for that. But when we got promoted back up, I did one saying, "Well done, Top," because the success is there because of him, but also the failures are there because of him. And I have to say, and this might be giving away where I'm going with this, but he is the owner. The book stops with him. And as much as anybody else, and will come down to them taking their share of the blame, they are all there at his bequest. You know, if he's not happy with a manager, he can sack him. If he's not happy with Susan Whelan, he can sack her. If he's not happy with Johnny Rotten, he can sack him. Do you know what I mean? So they are all there at his bequest. And, you know, the club sinks and swims by... And I'm not saying that any of these people are to blame on their own. They're not. Let's just get that straight from the start. I'm not going to suddenly go and give 100% here to Top and say that it was all his fault. Be interesting to see. I'll let you go first with this one. What percentage of the 100 you are giving to Top?
I'm going to give Top 30% of the blame.
Ooh, okay. 30%. Now, can I just say, everybody, that this is the gentleman who every week usually gets one of the predictions totals wrong in the league table. So I'm hoping at the end of it...
my maths won't add up, mate. You're going to have to keep a firm...
I've got it ready, Brad.
I'm glad you have, because I have.
Well, you've gone 30. That's very, very interesting. Because I have actually gone higher.
Oh, interesting indeed.
Now, I suppose you are thinking that I'm up in maybe in the 50s and what have you. And it's not as easy as it works, because as I was giving the percentages out, and I got there, I thought, I've gone over 100, so I've got to go and mix it up and work out what I think. But you've given him 30%. I've given him 33%.
Oh, look at how this div's going to... Oh, I see how this is going to go.
Well, no, I'll go first next time. Don't worry. I'll go first.
Yeah. I'll bet it's 33%, isn't it?
No. But I have to give, and I've got to say that is my highest percentage, because he sits on the throne, and therefore he has to take the like I say, the brickbats with the congratulations and what have you. So yeah, I've gone 33 for Top. Now, next up is the board. Oh, we all hate the board, don't we? Susan Whelan. And if anybody wonders who that man is, and you could say, if you know him, go and tap him on the shoulder and say, you're Andrew Neville and I want my £5, is what they used to do with the newspapers. That is Andrew Neville, our finance director. Now, you know, looking at the trouble that we're in, PSR, what was he doing? Susan Whelan is Top's representative in the UK. Has she been keeping him up to date with everything that was going on? Look, we know we had COVID, etc. But was she cutting the cloth accordingly? You know, we know we sailed too close to the wind, but it wasn't like it had never happened to anybody else when we were the first ones. You know, look at Leeds when they, you know, how they sort of fell from grace. And I think the board have got a lot to answer for. That guy there on the right is, I say, the finance director. What the hell has he been doing, Brad?
Yeah. Because I haven't got time to prep this and work out maths, I realise if I give the percentage I'm going to give, I'm not leaving a lot to blame on the rest. Can I change tops down to 20?
Oh, okay.
There's a reason behind it, right? Because I know what you say, the book falls with Top, and I get that. But Enzo was promised. He never got. I think that helped in his decision to jump ship to Chelsea. Brendan was told, yeah, don't worry about it. You can get Lukeman in. We'll give you money. That will back you to keep pushing on. Never happened. Was completely screwed. Well, we got one transfer in that season, and it was a last-minute signing. I think it was Wout Faze, weren't it? He signed, poor bloke.
Fortunately, yeah.
Yeah. Well, now look where we are with Wout Faze, right? these two gambled with our future, and they started gambling with our future in about 2016-17. Now I know that.
Sorry, just to interrupt there. Sorry, Andrew Neville's actual official title is Football Operations Director. So not financial, but he is the Football Operations Director. Sorry, do carry on.
What's that in English then? What does he actually do?
Well, exactly. I mean, the finance goes through the board anyway. You know.
Right. Okay. Well, on that assumption that that's what it goes through anyway, right? These guys gambled with our future.
Yeah.
They allowed and confirmed and told Top, and managers,
all three of them.
Yeah. Top and Brendan and whoever else before or after was told, yeah, it's fine, spend this money, we're going to be fine. They were bricks when Leicester came down to the last game of the season needing to win to get Champions League football. Because I'll ask you this, Chris, I'll ask you this. Did Andrew Neville come up with the idea of how to stop us getting a points deduction this season?
No.
Did Susan Whelan come up with a genius way to avoid the points deduction this season?
No.
Did
Not even our own council came up with that. And he is, let me tell you, I can tell you that our general counsel is a gentleman called Matt Phillips. What's he been doing?
Exactly. So let's include him in the mix of this awesome, amazing backroom board that we have, right? So how was the problem solved, Chris? What was it by any chance Top spending more of his own money hiring a class lawyer to look at a contract and find a loophole within a day because these idiots can't read or write, apparently? Because that's the feeling I get from them, Chris. I feel like the incompetence these people show is only masked by their smartness of being able to word things properly to keep their jobs. You know, Susan Whelan's been around since the dark ages of Filbert Street. So maybe loyalty is something that needs to be detached from these two because they've both been in the club for a hell of a long time. But I feel like as it is with the older generation adapting to the new generation in real life, if you're staying an old fossil and a dinosaur, you need to be removed from the situation. I feel like that's something that I would give Top more blame for, but because we're doing 100% and there's a few more to blame, Chris, this is a generous score because I'd like to whack about 70% of the blame on them. But because there's more than 3 people involved in this conversation, I'm going to go 45%.
Wow. Woo.
These two are the sole reason that a lot of other people have headaches.
Wow. That took me by surprise. I'm not going to say hi to Doug. How you doing, mate? Hope you and the family are well, and I hope Nate is feeling better. Excuse me. I take on board a lot of what you say, and these people have got to take their fair share of the blame. But as we kept saying with Top, he needed to grow a pair of balls when it came to Cooper. He needs to grow a pair of balls when it comes to these two. And I don't know. Certainly Susan Whelan was brought in from outside, so she probably didn't have a lot of football knowledge. But they are there, like I say, at the bequest of Top. If they are doing a shit job, then they get rid of him. And it's like any business, Brad. As I always quote my job as a manager of a sales team, whilst it was down to me to say, like, that person's not pulling the weight, try and train them up, get them better. If they don't, look at sacking them. It is also the sales manager's job to look at me and go, you know what, you're not training the staff up well. Your staff aren't doing as good as they should be doing. That's something that's your fault. You need to go. That said, I've not gone as high as you, which is probably not surprising. Wow, nearly half on the board there. But I have gone 30%.
Let's see.
So I've gone 63% for those two, and you've gone 65% for those two, but unevenly split.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been less hard on the board if Pop had maybe made changes.
No, see, sorry, that they have earwigged and slithered and snaked their way and begged and pleaded and done all, God knows what to God knows who just to make sure their job was safe and their neck wasn't on the line. I reckon if they had a bunch of nuns, they'd throw them under the bus just to keep their own job. They're all snakes wearing human skins, mate. Sorry, but at the end of the day, the board has advisories, and Top isn't there 24/7. And if he goes, look, what the hell is going on? Do I need to get rid of the board? And he's got Joe Bloggs sat next to him going, no, Your Honour, no, your Lordship, we must keep these guys because they are very well in with the club. They love it here. We love them here. They're not the problem. It's someone else. Blah blah blah. He's going to go, well, sort it out then. And then he's actually had to take the action we all wanted him to, Chris, over the last year or so. I'm going, stop this. It's getting worse and worse. I've brought in a star lawyer, this mess out that these can't. But I do understand that if he's got to that point, these two shouldn't be in a job anymore. They really shouldn't be.
That is the point, is, that he should be looking at and saying, like, why have I had to bring in an outside lawyer to sort this out? Yes, he's an expert, but then again, the lawyer that I'm employing surely should be an expert. Why? Yeah. I've had to come in and go, Cooper, you're out. So why are other people still in a job? Because he should be coming and going, you guys employed him. You need to go. So I've gone 33% top and 30 board. You've gone 20 top and, wow, a huge 45% for the board. Next up, Martin Glover and the recruitment team. How much are they to blame? I'll let you go first on this one, Brad.
See, instantly, people are going to think of all the players they don't like. Yeah. All the players they consider flops. And they're going to go, oh, it's all their fault. They're the ones that brought in the rubbish. They're also the ones that brought in and scouted Riyad Mahrez.
Yeah. Well, not Martin Glover because he wasn't there then. But I know.
Yeah, but again, the recruitment process has ailed through time. So whether it was Glover who brought in, Mahrez, whether it was Glover who brought in Harry Winks from a Premiership team to a Championship team, Madsen was brought in. Yes, he communicated with Enzo, but he went, here's a list of goalkeepers that match your criteria, and now we're crying into our Hovis, like Leeds fans, that Madsen's out injured. Martin Glover, kept Vardy on board. But that's probably part of his job a little bit in that sense. Look at the players he's brought in. Look at the success we've managed to have with him at the helm. Every recruitment gets it wrong. There isn't a recruitment out there from Real Madrid, Barcelona to Celtic to Chelsea. I mean, you make 450 signings at transfer window, you're bound to get one or two wrong. Arsenal, even Man City, they get signings wrong. They get players in that they match all the criteria, but just cannot do it at this level, whatever level that may be. Like I said, from Man City all the way down to Chesterfield, mate, they have a recruitment team. They're not always going to pull diamonds out the rear end. It's just not possible. I'm going to shock everybody here. I don't blame him at all. I feel like he's blameless. He cannot predict somebody's attitude when he signs them. He cannot predict somebody's personality. He can only look at what's given for him, go to all the people that work for him, go to the scouting team and go, right, I've been told by Brendan, by Enzo, by Cooper, by Rude, this is what we need. That's what I want. Give me them. I'll get them recruited. I'll bring them in. I'll go and look at them, and I'll give you 3 players to then hand to Rude to deal with someone else who we're going to discuss later on. How can you blame somebody who is only doing what he's told to bring in? We might sit there and say we're not buying right backs, but if he's not getting told to go and look for right backs and recruit right backs and recruit staff members for the backroom staff, which I guess he might have a go in as well. Then how can he? He can't just go, I know you said no strikers, Governor, but here's 16 strikers. He's going to go, well, fuck off, I don't want strikers. I can't blame a recruitment team for bringing in people for them to look at and ultimately get over the line.
And look at Man United. Even Alex Ferguson got it wrong. Wilfred Zaha didn't work out. who's that goalkeeper they signed? Began with a T. Tbilisi or somebody.
Oh, yeah, he had that bloke that went through his legs and all sorts.
Yeah. So even Fergie makes bad mistakes. So you've gone at 0%, right?
Yeah,
Now,
I just can't fathom how you can blame somebody who brings in what he's asked to bring in and it don't work. Go on, Chris.
I accept what I accept what you're saying, and I'm just going to go and get my tin hat because I think it does take some of the blame. I think all these people on here, for me, take some of the blame because at the end of the day, yes, he's doing what he is asked to do, and he's not going to get it right 100% of the time, and it's not his fault that Lookman shouldn't be here. I mean, that has got to be the biggest one that got away ever for us. And that's not his fault.
Exactly.
I'm actually going to drop mine a little bit here. But at the end of the day, he does pick the players. You know, when you look at those signings, Ranieri probably made some awful signings, right?
Yeah.
And when Rodgers signed your friend, what was he called from Newcastle? Perez.
Oh, Iose doesn't play Perez.
Yeah, exactly. Now, that might be a bad example because we know how much Brendan wanted him. But, you know, these are the players that the recruitment team would have gone and looked at them, and he should be coming back going, do you know what? He's shit.
But again, like you just said, that he could go back and go, I've got you the option you wanted. Here's two options I feel are better, and the manager's gone, cheers for that, but I shag him up the rear end, so I'm going to sign him.
Well, you know what I mean? Let's have a look at Tete then. How can you go wrong with the Brazilian? But we did. And at the end of the day, these he should be. You know, his job isn't just twice a season, summer and January. He should be looking at players throughout the season, scouting them, following them. We made less mistakes when we had Steve Walsh and the other guys running the thing. And I'm not saying
we had a different manager.
Yes, we did. And like I say, he's not going to get it all right, and he's not going to get it all wrong. But he still has to take a little bit of the blame. Because, you know, the players we sign are players that he has recommended. You know, he probably recommended Edouard. You know,
but also, Chris, look at the circumstances in where he would have recommended Edouard. Ruud van Nistelrooy would have turned around, or Cooper, would have turned around. He was in charge of the summer window. He'd have gone, we need a striker and we've got 16 hours. We can't permanently sign one. We need somebody in who's either free or going to come to us via a loan. And he went, are you taking the piss, mate? Let me go into the depths of the cellar and find someone who's starving for playing time, who's got Premier League quality as well. Okay, give me a straw to clutch at here, mate. I've got Edouard from Palace. I wouldn't recommend him because you've got you're desperate. Come on, you. I feel like that's how the transfer went, Chris. Because how do we talk about him, and how do Palace fans talk about the idea of us returning him? You know, we're trying to sing Elvis Return, the sender, and they're like, address unknown, address unknown. You know what I mean?
Oh my God! No, I'm going to be thinking about that all night. I can't think, Brad.
No such zone as Palace. We don't exist. Keep him.
Oh, Brad Perk is there. Leicester till I die's answer to Elvis Presley.
Except I ain't planning on dying on the bog.
Well, then again, if you got John Rudkin, you'd be all right, mate.
That's just blame him.
You hadn't got that straight away, had you?
No,
but no, I do know what you're saying, but I have given him 8%.
Literally 8%.
8%. Between 7 and 9. Because
I tell you what, Chris, because you've just mentally scarred me with Edouard, I'll give him 5% of the blame.
You're giving him 5. Okay, you're giving him 5. Okay.
Ugh.
But he has to still take a little bit of the blame, because even if the manager, and we'll come on to the manager in a second, but even if the manager has said, I want a striker, it would have been Glover that would have probably come back and said, oh, here's one. I don't recommend him. But if you don't recommend him, don't put him forward then.
Yeah, but then again, like you said, if he's desperate for a striker and he says, I'll take whoever you give me, he might have asked Akinbaye first to lace up his boots.
Well, yes. Well, we couldn't have done any bloody worse, could we? Right, so I've gone 8% for recruitment. You've changed your mind. You've gone 5. I
kind of agree. Nobody on here is completely blameless, and there is some. I feel like there were some drunk decisions where it's kind of gone, hey, Tete, sounds like Tetley T, let's get him in. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's had a few too many and he's made a bad call in the morning.
He's Brazilian. What could go wrong? You know? Oh, yes. Well, I'm up to 71% and you're at 70. So we're neck and neck. Oh, and you've gone.
Oh, has it gone off?
It's gone off.
Okay. I am still here. Let me try and sort it, but keep going.
Okay. Well, I'll go on to this next one while you're trying to sort that out then, because this, I'm surprised. I would imagine anybody that's watching, if they were doing this guy would get 99.9%. I cannot give any blame, really, although I can't say nobody's totally blameless, but John Rudkin is not it's not his fault. You know, I mean, if that Bull Tower fell down, somebody would say it was John Rudkin's fault. If somebody's girlfriend ran off with the milkman, that guy would say, well, it's John Rudkin's fault. He doesn't seem to have the power that everybody seems to give him. Yes, look, he started, he was a non-football guy, he came in, he got into coaching, and he's worked his way up to this position as director of football. Again, it's one of those that I think it covers a multitude of sins, but there we go. He, at the end of the day, doesn't employ anybody. All he does is he will go and work out the contracts, but he's working with them in a budget. You know, it's the recruitment. Well, it's the manager that says these are the players I want or the positions I want. The recruitment go out and find them, and then the manager picks which one he wants, and then it's up to John Rudkin to finalise the deals. John Rudkin finalises those deals based on a budget given to him by Top. Now, Top will have said, right, you've got 100 million, you can spend that on however many players you get in, but that's as much as you can spend. When people complain about John Rudkin, well, look, all these high wages John Rudkin's given them. If we didn't sign players because we didn't offer enough, you would be moaning. And let's be honest with you, who's going to want to come to Leicester because we're a good team? Nobody. Nobody at the moment, because we're a fucking shit team. So he's probably going to have to give a bit more money out to convince that person to come. Now, look, we've been linked, for example, with this Laid, is it, striker from Middlesbrough? But apparently, so have Tottenham. Now, he may go, oh, look, I go to Tottenham, I'm never going to get in the team, blah, blah, blah. Leicester, I could be a regular. But my God, Tottenham are offering me 50 grand a week more than Leicester are. So Leicester might have to say, look, we'll give you another 40 grand. Well, yeah, for 10 grand a week, I can live with that. I'll come. So I do find it hard. You're back. Hello.
Yeah,
I do find it hard to apportion blame to him, but he does have to take some, because nobody, like I say, is blameless. But based on what I've just said, and it does annoy me so much when everybody says it's Rudkin's fault, it's Rudkin's fault. You know, like I said to you the other day, he does every job, including wiping Top's arse. You went a bit further than that. But I think, for me, this person takes less blame than anybody else on the on the list. He doesn't sign the pay. He doesn't choose the players. He only is gets sorts the contracts out. I've given him 5%.
Chris?
Yes.
Who did keep offering players like Perez double the money new contracts, who decided to put Slimani on such a high wage bill that not even the mighty Real Madrid, who wouldn't have taken him anyway, but couldn't have afforded his wage bill, who essentially gambled pushing the limits of our wage structure that we couldn't, that had it gone so horribly wrong, if it had gone any worse than Europa League, Chris, we wouldn't have had a proverbial pot to piss in, let alone getting players in on loan and scrape 15 million together to sign Loopman a few seasons later. I agree, Chris, we had to punch above our weight. Mm-hmm. But this guy took full liberties with that at stages. There was no reason for Islam Samani, who was playing in the Portuguese league, right, to suddenly be on, 8 as a basic wage. You've got to remember, Chris, as well, I've learned this over the years. This isn't just some wisdom knowledge that I was born with or I've studied or anything. But watching football, ex-footballers podcasts and that, he probably got an appearance fee of 30 grand. He probably got a goal scoring fee of 10 grand. He probably got a win bonus of 10 grand. He probably got a Champions League boosted bonus of 15 grand. How many games did he play for Leicester, did Islam Samani? And again, not his fault. We brought him in for Champions League and we literally fucking stuck to that, it seemed. I don't know why we spent so... But he's the guy who went, yeah, we can do that.
But working within a budget.
But did he though, Chris?
Because no.
Let hear me out, right? Could he? Did he work within the budget? Technically, you're right. He did work within a budget. He didn't quite go over that bracket, just about, Chris. Let's have it that, right? But did he use that budget wisely? Not always. No, he used to, Chris. In the good old days when he got us Tillemans in on a decent wage, he was only on 40 grand a week, I think, when he came to us. He wasn't on a lot, and we always knew that was going to go up if he reached the heights that he did. That's beyond his control. You have to entice them players in. I can totally understand that. But what would have been better for the club, Chris? Because I don't understand how Slimani was worth commanding 80 grand a week for Portuguese league. I can't fathom it. If we're only paying the likes of Tillemans, who'd got a bit more flair about them and was a younger prospect, right? Adrian Silva. Now, that wasn't his fault. That was 14 seconds. That's a long-running joke. But what was he on, Chris? He was probably on 60 grand a week. And he, although it didn't work out for him at Leicester, he was a far better talent than Islam Samani. We could have got him 40 grand a week. How did he get that desperate to get him through the door that he had to double that?
Well, let me come back to you. In my belief, when we got Islam Slimani in, we were champions of England. Therefore, what was being asked of us was more. What was being expected by players was more. And we wanted those players because we were champions of England. So if we'd have still been buying players from the League Two and League Ones and championships, we'd have had brickbats thrown at us. So we had to go out for these players. Now, I know he's saying about the Portuguese league, but he was still a league winner. Same as Sumare, same as Daka. They both won the leagues last season before they joined us in their respective leagues. Again, it wasn't the fact that, it wasn't Rudkin who wanted Slimani. It was Claudio Ranieri who wanted Slimani. Now, what if John Rudkin's come back and went, you know what, Claudio, I'm really sorry. I can't get him for this. And Claudio goes, oh, I really, really want him. I really, really rate. Hang on a second. Just get Top. Hello. Yeah. Look, John won't spend the money. Yeah, I want that Slimani. Yeah, if you could do, please. Then John goes, oh, hang on, my phone's ringing. Yeah, hello. Oh, hi, Top. How you doing? Well, you want to spend more money? All right, then. Well, if you say so, yeah, I will. Okay, bye-bye. And we end up with Slimani.
Problem is, mate. Oh, you've frozen mine. Oh, no, you're back. Problem is, mate, he also has he's also supposed to have a set of knackers where he goes, I understand that he really wants him, but Mr. Top, sir, whatever you have, however they refer to him as, right?
Buddy.
Yeah, whatever, yeah. Pal, chum, golf buddy, whatever. This is going to cripple us. I don't think hand cheeker. I don't think he understands that this is going to ruin us. You told me that, look, because of and here's another one, Chris, for you. What about the shitstorm of the release clauses and the buyout clauses that every player happily signed? That we nearly lost Brody Kante for peanuts. We nearly lost Mahrez for peanuts. Yeah. If it weren't for if it weren't for Vishai stepping in and sorting that out and getting them all taken out and renegotiating contracts, where did it start when players went? Well, where did it start? Where they just went, "Hey, you won't believe this. You won't believe this." You know, Leicester City completely mugged themselves off with them silly buyout things and the silly low cut prices to get money quick off them. And they've They shit themselves and gave them all new contracts. And now that Jamie Vardy, who was on 40 grand a week, is earning 100 grand a week, guess what, mate? They want you and all. We could get 100 grand out of these monks. Was it not him? Did he not make all these? Did he not offer all these players a contract? And they rightly rubbed their hands and went, "Hey, yes, please."
Who offered all the players a brand new? Was it Lamborghini or something? Every single one of them.
Wasn't it a BMW?
BMW. Every single player, whatever it was, every single player got a brand new one of them. Kante left 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Now, Kante apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong. Look, I could well be wrong here. Kante did not want to come to us because we'd literally just sacked Pearson, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to come now." And again, if that player says, "Well, I'll come to you, but I can't see my future being at Leicester, but look, I'll come and try and develop my career. But if another club comes in for me, then I want to go." Now, we didn't know how good Kante was going to be.
No.
What did we get for Kante? Was it 40 million? Which in those days was good. It's like Harry Maguire saying, look, I'll sign a new contract, but you've been good to me, but I want a get-out clause, and if Man United come in for me, because that was his club, then I will go, and we'll agree on the price.
With Liverpool, then.
Sorry?
A bit like Liverpool with Heskey.
Exactly. And John Rudkin wasn't here for Heskey. So you've got to think that, a lot of these demands are what the players are asking and saying, like, yeah, I'll come to you, and we can't afford to pay these players maybe 100 grand a week. So we will say to them, all right, we'll pay you 80 grand a week and we'll give you a performance bonus.
Yeah.
That's how we get up to it. So although the performance bonuses look high, they're probably not, because there is part of the deal. And it's all about what we have got to agree to these players to come. Now, I am sure at some point, Rudkin just doesn't go in there with a blank checkbook and say, look, fill that in. Like I say, he knows his limit. And when he reaches that limit, I'm sure he goes back to the manager and says, look, I can't get him. And then it's up to Top and the manager maybe to decide if they can. So...
I mean, I get what you're saying, but again, Chris, and I know the man who signs the checks, ultimately you say is in Top, pays off line, but he's supposed to have a set of knackers. Maybe he should have gone, whoa, slam the brakes on. We're on a little bit of cloud nine. It's mid-January, whatever. You want to add these stipulations into their contract to kind of encourage them to win it. Go for the car. Go for the bonus. Pay them that. Why are you now? No. Let's not give 12 players, 15 players release clauses so they can go and play Champions League for an Arsenal, which is where we nearly lost Vardy to, and an Atletico Madrid.
But maybe we have to get them in the first place.
But we already had Vardy here. We already had Albrighton here. We already had Drinkwater.
You already have a get-out clause, though.
Yeah, that's why Atletico Madrid were only going to pay 20 million for him.
I didn't even know Atletico Madrid were after him.
He was strongly linked with the idea of it before Arsenal made the big move, and he did say he wanted to stay in England. He was linked with Atletico Madrid for 20-odd million. Danny Drinkwater, who kicks up a right fuss. He was sulking at the bloody at on the celebration thing they did, he was on his phone a bit like a Fofana. Wasn't interested in being there for it because he wanted to go Chelsea. Now, Kante had the release clause put in to bring him in. That I can fine. That happens. Like you said, we have to do that. But why was the likes of Drinkwater, who was a championship player, why was the likes of I don't want to say he was because I think he was injured a lot, but why was the rest of that squad? Why was potentially Wes Morgan offered that?
But then again, let me take it on. Let me play devil's advocate here, which obviously we're both doing. When you've got a player that you want to keep, and you say, "Look, we want to keep you," and they say, "Well, look, I'm playing really well here. I fancy Champions League football." Well, can you not give us another, couple of years? We'll give you this contract, pay you this much. Well, I really do want that. Well, look, what if we give you this, but I give you a sellout clause? That works well for us because if you go, we'll get that money. But it also gives you the opportunity to leave, like I say, if a club comes in for you, but we get the use of you. I don't know what else he's supposed to do. Otherwise, we just end up losing players left, right, and centre. I mean, Tielemans, I don't know what we possibly did have a sell-on clause there, but he just ran his contract down. And that's nobody's fault. That's just Tielemans being a Belgian bastard. But,
yeah, it is. No, you're right on that fact.
But no, for John Rudkin,
I think it was just poor on his behalf on the valuations and what he valued them at. He kind of just went, well, if you want a release clause, Champions League club comes in for you, 20 million. You, 7 million. You're a really good value player. And maybe this is where they didn't think with Tielemans, right? They actually thought that they stupidly took Tielemans for his word that he wouldn't and ah about it and he would keep himself in contract for Leicester to make sure he got money, which makes me say this. At least Fofana gave us a contract extension to get some money from. Oh, sorry, that was hard to say.
Hard to admit, isn't it? But yes,
yeah,
I agree.
But, and maybe they should have put something in where, I feel like he lowballed it and he highballed it too much. Maybe there was something in Tielemans' contract, but a bit like, with Harry Maguire, that whole deal wasn't a buyout clause. It was, we value him at 80 million. So you pay what we value him at, because we were in that strong position to boast that, puff our chest out and command a fee for it. With Tielemans, I feel like we could have cut our losses in that second season before the relegation season and gone, he's starting to puff out of his arse. He's starting to be sluggish. If Chelsea or Man City or Villarreal or whoever want to pay 30 million for him still now, yes, it's 10 million more. It's 10 million less than what we paid for him.
Yeah.
But
I just want to bring this comment in from Michael, because he said this on an earlier show today. Anyone who's a true fan would have heard that interview on Radio Leicester. Michael, go and play with yourself in a corner, because I don't get Radio Leicester, or I didn't then, because you couldn't get it on different things. Now you can get it on smart speakers and what have you. But then I haven't lived in Leicester since I was 21. I'm now 63. So just because I didn't hear one fucking interview on Radio Leicester does not make me any less of a fan than you. And quite honestly, this is the second time you've said about Trina being a true fan. And to be quite honest with you, I'm fed up with you. Absolutely fed up with you. So I'm going to put you in a timeout. Go away and think about it, mate. You're talking shite. Being a true fan doesn't mean that you listen to one interview. I'm sorry. Go and play with yourself in a corner and make yourself happy.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry about that. Just had to get that off my chest, because you said similar this earlier on in the show as well. I'm sorry. It's like people saying, "Well, this person's a plastic van." No, fans don't. Maybe you're retired. Maybe you've got nothing else in your life other than listening to interviews on Radio Leicester. But anyway, ignoring that now and moving on, I've given John Rudkin 5%.
Well, I certainly don't blame him as much as others do. I mean, others think he's the owner, the tea lady, the manager, the kit man. He's Jamie Vardy. He's everybody but the bloke who actually doesn't do as much as people think he does. They seem to think he owns, like I said, everything. But I do blame him for getting us in trouble because of some bad negotiation skills. And again, a bit like Glover. You know, you're going to get good and bad negotiations. And I'm not saying that, you know, there was some bad players that they wanted in that he went, well, if you're willing to
I feel that fence bending under your weight there, Brad.
I'm going to give him 10% of the blame.
10%. I've got to say, if I'm honest, I am surprised. I didn't think you'd go as high as that, but I appreciate what you were saying. And like we say, football is all about opinions. But, you know, I gave top 33 and you gave him 20. Look, you know, we do change. 2 left. Let's go on to number 5 and blame the managers. Now, this is interesting because how much are the managers to blame? Look, we look back and we called him Brenda. We called him Brendan Bellend. You know, we absolutely murdered him. Look, he got us into Europe twice, into 2 seasons running. He won us the FA Cup. We were that close to getting into the Premier League. And all right, people say, well, we shouldn't have cocked it up. We're Leicester. You know what I mean? We're not an Arsenal that should be expecting to be there all the time. And we know he was lied to by Top, which is one of the reasons Top got 33% off me. He was going out that summer. He said, I need to rebuild the squad. And Top said, yep, that's fine. We'll get to the summer and you can have the money. He was coming on. He was being interviewed. He was going out and he was approaching players saying, yep, we'll send you the contract over. Yeah, you want to come to us? Brilliant. And then Top went and pulled the rug. So maybe us getting relegated wasn't all down to Brendan. And maybe he deserved a longer chance than he had. Now, look, we're only going back to sort of 2 seasons ago. So the relegation season, the promotion season, and the season we've just come up. Again, those 3 guys that you see there, because we can't blame Enzo, he got us promoted. Can't blame Rude, he's not really been there long enough. Those are the 3 guys that, the guy that I gave 33% to hired. Although he did actually then turn around and say, well, I didn't really want Cooper. Well, why didn't you do something about it, Top? Why did you let us sign it? Why have you just spent millions in paying him off? I've given 17% to the managers because at the end of the day, they still have to. We've gone again. At the end of the day, they still have to take some responsibility because at the end of the day, and we'll come on to the players in a second, but they're the one that pick the players that go out. They're the ones that say, that's who I want you to sign. They're the ones that say, do you remember when we had, who was it? Alan. What was he called? Not Tom Allen, he's the comedian. Martin Allen. As manager that went out and bought every left sided player going, and we only used to attack down that one side. So it is down to the managers, but at the end of the day, players have got to take some blame as well, and they can only work within, like with Enzo last season, within what they're allowed to work within as promised to them by Top. So I'm giving them 17% for the managers. No, I'm not. I'm going to change that. One of us is frozen. It might be me. I'm giving 15% to the managers.
You're giving 15%. Interesting. If anyone's been keeping up with the show and doing quick maths, I know what's left.
Yes.
This is a difficult one because instantly, we all know the buck stops with the manager. If the results are going badly, you're going to sack the manager, not 22 players, right? But you have to take that out of the equation as to what went wrong with these managers. Now, you could quote Icarus and say that Brenda flew too close to the sun and his wings burnt when he was flying high with Leicester. And hindsight's a wonderful thing. I think let's have it right, Chris. Had he known what was to come round the corner and he could change history, he'd have walked off into the sunset, and we'd be going, Brandon, what a god, better than Martin O'Neill. You know, Europa League, got us to a semi-final. 90 minutes away from a European final, won us the FA Cup, something we'd failed at 4 times before. To do. We had a Villa fan hand it to us, which made it even better in Prince William. So he could have done that, and we wouldn't be even thinking of Brendan as a bad manager, would we? And I agree with you. This kind of is the knock-on effect of all the people we've blamed before these guys. I feel like a little bit, Brendan kind of went, sod this. I've done everything.
Yeah.
I've done everything. I have shouldered the blame. I have taken all the responsibility. I have thrown myself in front of buses, anything that's gone wrong. And there hadn't been a lot that went wrong, apart from the 2-season mini meltdowns, if you will. Although you could say a lot of fans were on the high horse thinking we won 1 Premier League, so we had to be top 4 every time. No, go back to them seasons and tell me we're finishing 5th. I'm snapping your hand off right now. You're telling me the likes of Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, and even though they were struggling at the time, Man U were keeping us out the top 4 and we're right up behind them. Yes, please, every time. Did we have the hardest run in the FA Cup? Not particularly, but we still had to beat them to get there, and we still had to beat Chelsea in the final to win the thing. So credit to him. Europa League, we could have won that. We could have been the first name on the Europa League conference as well under him. It was not to be, unfortunately. That's how it goes. But we've never, ever thought we'd see these days at the football club. Yes, Ranieri brought us the day we never, ever could imagine in a millennia of lifetimes you couldn't imagine would do it. But other things were still ticked off that were unbelievable achievements, Chris. And is it his fault that when that team, and I know we're going to get to the players last, and I understand why, but when that team was pushed to its brink, when it was burnt out, look at Man City this season. Everybody's taking the piss out of them. Everybody's laughing at them, and rightly so to a degree, because it is hilarious. But they're burnt out, Chris. Look at the COVID season. The reason, and it's not the only reason, and I do feel a bit harsh saying it as this, but to give the example of it, a lot of people say Man City burnt out. They'd won it 3 times in a row. They'd just won this. They were absolutely done. They hadn't really recruited too many players, maybe because they knew what was on the horizon. I don't know. But they were burnt out. Liverpool took a weakened Man City and done it. And you might argue that a little bit this season. That was kind of the case with Leicester. What did Man City do, Chris, when they burnt out the next season? Right? Because they were never going to be in relegation trouble like Leicester. They recruited. They moved players on. They got rid of some players who would have gone, whoa, really? Yeah, he was their top midfielder last season. So why are you getting rid of Gundogan? Because I want to bring in Bernardo Silva. I want to bring in this. Why are you getting rid of David Silva? Because I want to bring in this guy. I want to bring in it. I want to keep that rolling. And just when Brendan had the idea that it was going to have to go ahead to do that, first of all with Luke Burn and potentially other signings he may have eyed up in the summer. Because like he said, Chris, like you said rightfully, he was sat on a beach somewhere. Where
sat on his bitch, was he? I bet she wasn't happy.
He was sat on his beach somewhere on a beach, putting his feet up, hands behind his head, going, oh, glorious, I've got a transfer target. I've been given...
How do you wonder we didn't sign anybody?
No, I'm just going for it. I'm just letting it ride. People can take the piss in the comments down below. But you know what I mean, Chris? He was given all that promise of a good time. He was told at least...
from his bitch.
From his bitch. He was given a promise from his bitch. They could have all these good times. And then he was also told he'd have a transfer kitty to spend and all. And then, bang. All his hard work is, what's my reward? I've brought European football back to back. I've taken you to a European cup semi-final that we got to, against Roma, managed by Jose Mourinho, nonetheless, right?
Winners, eventual winners.
Yeah, eventual winners that season. I've taken you to an illustrious FA Cup, something out of your grasp 4 times. You know, we're far better sides on paper than what we have. What I've worked with here. What's my reward? Oh, bugger and all. Oh, well, I'm done then. And I think that's when somebody who you've gave more percentage of the blame to than I have, but we've gave more blame to than I'm going to give to the managers, because what's he supposed to do? How is that team supposed to stay motivated when they probably turned up to work on the first week of training or the first pre-season and they've got a manager just looking dejected?
Yeah. No, totally 100% agree. You know, I think we do look back on Rodgers' time and maybe don't give him the credit he deserves. You know, we give Ranieri all this sort of, we should build a statue, etc. And don't get me wrong, what he did was amazing. But then, in fairness, so was Brendan Rodgers winning the FA Cup. That's something we never come close to. Well, we'd been in a few finals, obviously. But yes, you know.
Yeah, we was a bridesmaid, never the bride, weren't we, in that scenario?
Yeah. But I think, look, Brendan was promised a hell of a lot. He was let down a hell of a lot by Top. And again, that's one of the reasons Top got 33% off me. But I've gone 15. What about yourself, young Brad?
Again, going across the board as well, I don't really blame Cooper for the mess he got in. I think
he was the wrong appointment. Well,
he was the wrong appointment. He was the wrong appointment, and his mantra is, I'm not used to having a fairly decent, talented squad, because we are on paper we are a more talented squad. I know they're ahead of us in the league, but on paper, we are a better squad than Ipswich, Southampton, and then we kind of get into the teams we should be battling with, like Palace and Wolves, where they're on our level, sort of thing. Yeah. So on paper, we shouldn't be in the position we're in. But he's so used to taking 40 loanees at Nottingham Forest and not having that quality there that he just played that way. He got them playing a way that suits a team that shouldn't really stay up, but has a chance playing his way. Whereas this team, as we've seen under Ruud van Nistelrooy in the last 2 performances, Chris, more expressive, want to be forward thinking. You score 2, we'll score 3 mentality. We're hoping in the new year going forward is going to work and better our results. And Dean Smith, what could he have done? You could have had Jose Mourinho and Pep Guardiola in the dugout for them 7 or 8 games or whatever it was he was in charge. And I don't think we stayed up. That's what you like to say in them scenarios. I'm only actually going to blame the managers because they do take a bit of blame. They have to take a bit of blame. Rodgers did let his ego keep him at the club longer than he could have. I feel like if you were to say that was Martin O'Neill in his situation, he'd have gone, okay, I have taken this club as far as I could. I am going to move on. I am going to go back Celtic. I'm going to take this job offer where else.
Yeah.
O'Neill did that when Celtic came calling. Again, he was never really going to turn down Celtic, but he also did say he'd taken us as far as he's going to do. We got that appointment wrong after him, unfortunately, as well. But I'm going to give them, what am I at, 80%?
80, yeah.
I'm going to give the managers, I'm going to give them 5%.
Oof, right. Okay. I've got to say, with Rodgers, I honestly think if he'd been given the money to do a rebuild, I don't think we'd have got relegated.
But you know what, Chris? I will second that and higher. If he'd have been given the money to have kept the rebuild and kept churning out these players and we'd have been able to buy at the level we were buying at, Brendan Rodgers would still be our manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he'd still been able to spend the money he was spending originally, I think he would have kept the squad going and we'd still have, maybe not European football, but he'd still be here managing a top 8 side.
Yeah. And Ray, hi Ray, how are you doing? So happy New Year to you. I'm an American Johnny come lately to football, but the Rodgers days were my early days. Spending the entire season in the top 4 was amazing for full 2 seasons. It was, and for the older fans amongst us, and I include myself in that, it was absolutely amazing. But a lot of the newer fans, not like yourself, but a lot of the younger fans who only remember the success was going, well, we were Premier League side, we should have stayed in the Europe. Now, I've worked out how much you've given on this last one. which is a more than I thought, to be honest with you. But we're going to end up with, players here. And I'm not just picking on the players that I've put on the picture here, but suspect number 6 in the who's to blame, the blame game. I've got Tielemans, Faz, Brad's favourite, Danny Ward, Patson Daka, and of course, who can forget Brad's other favourite, Tete. To name but a few. I don't honestly think any player goes over that white line at 3:00 on a Saturday or whatever time kickoff is, looking to lose the game. But some of those players, not those necessarily that are up there, I've just put those up as an example. But some of the players, probably a lot of the players, have got to take a long, hard look at themselves and say they have let our club down. Including Yuri Tielemans, who, let's be honest with you, we lost £40 million on him. If he'd have signed a contract, we wouldn't have had PSR problems because we'd have got 40 odd million pounds in for him. But because he's a Belgian bastard, he ran his contract down to leave so that he could get more money. It's all about Yuri Tielemans, isn't it? Fortunately, I wish he could go the same way as Fofana and maybe have a career-ending injury, but he hasn't as yet, and he's doing reasonably well for Villa. But all I can say is, Samari, if you're going to do a late tackle, look for Tielemans tomorrow, will you?
Yeah, but make sure it's 96th minute and we've already won the game. Don't do it in the 3rd minute. Don't.
No, exactly. But the players have got to take a long, hard look at themselves. So you've got that, the likes of Tielemans. When you look at what Maguire did, Tielemans, you're a bastard, and they're out of our club. Players don't necessarily come to us and go, we want to be bad. But look, for example, like Danny Ward. What annoys me is when players as well sit there and say, do you know what? You're not picking me. I'm going to sit here and take the money, which is what Danny Ward's done. He could have moved on. He could have asked for a move and said, look, I'm not being played. But I don't give a shit about that. I'm just going to sit here and take the money. And when I do play for you, I'm going to be shit. So the players, to me, have to take some collective responsibility.
No, they do. And obviously, again, for those that know the maths and have been following the show, they know exactly... I'm
just going to double check everybody while you're talking. I'm just going to get my calculator out.
Yeah, that's all right. You make sure, mate. You do your maths. You get your fingers and toes out. How many you got? And if you say 12, I'm worried for you.
Norwich.
Yeah. The thing is that whilst I agree with you, this is a difficult one to kind of, I could see different variations for different reasons. This all depends how much of the media you believe as well. But I see now I've heard players and come out, and Albrighton is one of them who I do genuinely believe isn't one of these players that snaked in the grass. If there was any snakes in the grass, allegedly for Ranieri's firing. There's no smoke without fire, though, Chris. And whilst I love to believe that no player goes across them white lines, not like Robbie Fowler, but they go across the white lines.
Or David Coop, for that matter.
Or Coop. The most alert official on the pitch. But no, I don't believe anyone goes across that they deliberately lose. I do believe players know their worth and their power, though.
Mm.
And I'm not saying any particular individuals, because I would be remiss of me to accuse somebody with no facts or evidence to back it up. But how many times, Chris, have you noticed the same pattern with Leicester?
Mm.
Brendan, how did that team suddenly stop playing football? Now you could say the board and the off-field antics and the manager's demeanour, but his attitude, because his press conferences changed that season as well. Chris started blaming the heat. He started being like a B-Tech Klopp. He was blaming wind and farts and coach ties being overinflated. He was chucking players under the bus. But no smoke without fire, because how many times now, Chris, have we heard, oh, Leicester players are complaining, they're moaning, they want this manager sacked? And again, how much of the media trying to just stir that old pot up? Why are they trying to dust off that old story from 10 years ago? Maybe. But there has to be some truth behind it, Chris, because it just seems so repetitive that when things start going wrong with a manager and the players don't like it, or the manager's not listening to the players and not taking their advice on board, and he's sticking to his ways, do the players seemingly play like they've got the ump? Tillemans, Mads, not Madsen, Madders, sorry, I'll say it properly. Maddison. I know we kind of threw him under the bus as a fan base, but Barnes, Vardy, at times, as much as that bloke deserves and warrants a statue and a bloody stand in a stadium named after him for what he's helped us achieve over his lifetime, you know, yes, it came out that Vardy actually apparently did like Cooper and wanted to get behind his ideas, but was frustrated that the players were also then collectively frustrated that he wouldn't play to their strengths. They didn't go out there to lose, Chris, but they weren't happy with it.
Yeah.
And they showed that with performances. You can't tell me the team that downed tools for Cooper in his last game in charge, and we'll forget Brentford because that was the in-between period, and the performance turnaround against West Ham and Brighton. You know? But again, we kind of forget the other period because of player on the screen, Danny Ward, unfortunately, and his performances in goal, you know.
Your hero.
Let's go back to Let's go back to the beloved, God rest his soul, the beloved child that was Shakespeare. Ranieri couldn't pick a tactic for more than 5 minutes before he wanted to change formations. The players down tools. They got fed up with him. And the second Shakespeare was in the dugout, we beat Liverpool 3-1.
Yeah.
We went up the table. You know, it seems to be that with certain egos and certain players in this dressing room that have come and gone, and I'll name one, and I'm going to curse someone out here, Chris, and I'm sorry to say it, but screw you, LCFC, for acknowledging Johnny Evans' birthday, because that dirty little rat was playing for Manchester United the second we drew 2-2 with Brentford in the 2022-23 season. He did to us exactly what he did to West Brom. As soon as he saw the ship was sinking, he went, "Hello, Titanic, get me on that lifeboat." He was gone. Don't acknowledge that sod's birthday. I don't care that he was our captain. I don't care that he took us to the FA Cup. That scumbag is more of a scumbag than Wesley Fofana in my eyes. Don't you dare acknowledge him on his birthday. That little rat was definitely there, gnawing at the wood to help sink that ship in that season, Chris.
Yes.
If I could blame a player on a percentage, he would get about 80% of that blame. And that's only because I have to give other players blame for their down tooling antics. Otherwise, he'd get 100% of it.
Yeah, it was funny how he suddenly got fit when he went to United.
Oh, how magic was that? He could pass a fitness test and kick a ball for them in the pre-season, but he couldn't do that when we needed 3 points against Everton.
No, exactly. Terry's just mentioned there. Somebody, not me, said Tielemans' goal in the FA Cup was worth 40 million alone. It may well have been, because obviously that got us into the Europa League, didn't it?
Yeah, because we would have been.
So it may well have been, but let's not forget we paid 40 million. We still lost money on Tielemans, and
wasn't that worth him? I would argue back, Chris. Wasn't that also worth him giving us some loyalty and signing an extension on his contract?
Yes, 100%.
Sorry, go on. I cut you up again. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, no. Do jump in whenever, mate. Do jump in. So yes, no, I agree. So I've gone 9%, which you could have worked out. And Brad, you've gone 15%. Therefore, I'm guessing.
Yeah, because I don't want to rejig up again to give them any more, because I do think to a degree, it was more a minority than a majority, but 15%.
Yeah. Well, just to run through these again and compare our scores. Top suspect number 1. I gave him 33. You gave him 20. So that is a total of 53%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's over half the blame. Susan Whelan and the board. I gave them 30. You gave them 45. So that's 75%.
That is quite literally 3/4 of the blame.
We'll just end there, shall we? We'll just end
I
there.
think we've got our winner, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
I think we know who we're blaming.
The recruitment team under Martin Glover. I gave 8. You gave 5. I believe that's 13%. And I know these total percents aren't going to come up. They're going to come up to 200, I know, but I will do an average and I'll put a post up about it later. Everybody's favourite bum shaker, John Rudkin. I gave 5, you gave 10, that's 15. The management, I gave 15, you gave 5, so that's 20%. And the players, I gave 9, you gave 15. If I'm not correct, that's 24% on that. So interesting. We started off agreeing and then you changed your mind and dropped from 30 to 20.
Only because I realised I wasn't going to be given the fairest assessment of their percentages if I went so high.
Well, I started off with top on the board very high because, let's face it, they're the ones that run the bloody thing. So on that. Recruitment, yeah, we won.
I think my percentage worked out that the two top do get the highest percentage, don't they?
They do, yeah, and with me as well. And with me, so we both agree. Number 1 and number 2, and if you need a number 2, are top on the board, and quite right as well. Recruitment, look, I went 8, you went 5. We were pretty close there. John Rudkin, you went higher than I thought you would. You went 10, I went 5. The manager, you went less than I possibly thought you would. I went 15, you went 5. Players, again, you went high, 15. I went with 9. So it's good that we didn't agree because it would have been a very boring show.
Oh, you've frozen.
No, oh, you're well. No, so well, I'm back.
You froze my end, if that makes you feel any better.
Yeah. Can I just say, and I wish I'd loaded it up, but I haven't actually got the prediction table up at the moment.
No, this is me.
Fred, what have you gone? Do come back, Brad.
Oh, no. No matter what I do, the camera won't come back on. I'm definitely not deliberately missing the mouse click button there.
Oh, dearie me. But no, the Prediction League, we've got, just to keep everybody updated that wasn't in the show, we've got Wayne joining us, but we've got a Wayne that's leaving us. So that's quite neat. But Wayne is going to take over the Wayne that's left us. The new Wayne is going to take over old Wayne's points, but that still puts him at the bottom. But he did say he was gunning for you, Brad.
Well, he's got a good chance the way I'm earning points. Can we not split the points between me and Wayne, and he can have half of Wayne's points, and I'll have the other half?
If you'd have said you and me, then I might have agreed to it. But
yeah. I tell you what, we'll round him up to 60. You have 30 points, I have 30 points. We won't tell the rest of them.
I don't. Well, like I say, I'm just making the most of it because I ain't going to go stay as high as I am. I'm getting bloody nosebleeds, mate.
I know, right?
And I have to say, talking of Desmond's, and I think we could have been, you went for 1, I didn't go for any.
Oh, really? How many Desmonds are there actually? I've lost track over the last Christmas. It will blow.
I believe on Desmond's, you've got 10, and I've got about 5, if that's correct.
No, that's not correct. Oh, you lying little git. You nearly had me going on there.
I don't know, but all I will say is, you enjoy your Desmonds, mate. But and we are going to be back tomorrow from 2:30 for the watch along. Starting before, unfortunately, Brad can't join us. Brad's back. Prediction League. Brad is back.
Yeah.
But you'll be joining us at the end of the game.
Yes, it's only because I finished work at 3:30.
That's understandable. Do not worry, mate. But we'll have the team news and pre-match analysis, the first half watch-along, half-time analysis, second half watch-along, and then the post-match reaction. All from 2:30 tomorrow. Brad will be there, say, for the post-match reaction with us. Brad, mate, thank you very much for tonight, and thank you for jumping on at the end. The end is where you used to be, because the end of the prediction league is where you are as well.
Now, shots fired.
No, remember that Hollies song? I can't tell the bottom from the top.
Something like that.
Two times winner, Brad.
Yeah, it's all right. This one's just a charity. I only do it when Steve Lynex is in. I don't bother.
Yeah, you and me both. All right, buddy. Thank you very much. Have a great night. Give my best to Jess, and I'll see you for the post match. Oh, talking of which,
she just messaged me saying, "Are you still on stream?" And I said, "Yes, but I'm literally finishing." So she said she'd come and say hi and bye.
She did indeed. Hi and bye.
She did actually. I forgot to mention. She did ask me to ask you if you had a good Christmas and New Year.
I did. Thank you very much, Jesse. I had an absolutely brilliant Christmas. One of the best ones I had. Unfortunately, I have got an hoodie the same as Brad's now. A big.
Jeff, did you hear him? He got an hoodie. His kids saw ours and they got him one.
At least he's not a bloody Shrek one.
Yeah, but you do look like a donkey.
This is very true, although you'd have probably been more accurate if I said I look like an ass.
Well, you said that, not me.
Exactly. But I did. Thank you very much, Brad. Happy New Year, Jess. Happy New Year, Brad. Happy New Year, everybody in the chat. Thank you very much. And Prashant says, thank you for this, Chris and Brad. Appreciate you taking the time to put this together. Appreciate your thanks, mate. Really do. See you tomorrow, Brad. Have a good night, mate. And thanks a lot.
Yeah, take care, mate.
Indeed. I'll see you all tomorrow at 2:30. Bye for now.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You'd better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.